Good day, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Living on Purpose, the show about intentionally crafting the happy, successful life you deserve. I'm your host, Mark Barton, author of the Living on Purpose course and owner of Bought In for the Win LLC, where we specialize in coaching, solutions-focused consulting, and personal or professional development training. If you find value in something in this show, please use the contact information to connect with me to discuss how I can be of service to you or your organization. Now, here's some updates on upcoming course offerings. First off, I had to cancel the course that was supposed to start next week at the Hub Center for Health and Beauty. Life happens, but I will work to get that rescheduled here very soon. However, I am very excited about the fourth quarterly class at Ways for Life here in Brevard County. That will be starting next Tuesday and run for 6 weeks. Ways for Life is an amazing organization that provides their members with the support they need to create a better life. Their services include assistance with housing, legal, education, employment, healthcare, and many more, including access to the Living on Purpose course. If you know a young person aged 15 to 25 that could benefit from their services, or that you'd like to help register for the upcoming course, please reach out to me or use their contact information here on the screen, and we will help you get registered as soon as possible. All right, those are the business updates. Now, let's get on with the show. Last week, we talked about one of my favorite topics, decision making and judgment, and what it means to bring your values into the process to ensure you're making good decisions. This week, we're going to focus on another one of my favorite topics, becoming empowered. Now, before I get into the 3 practical examples of becoming empowered, I want to start by demystifying the concept of empowerment because so many people go through daily life thinking they don't have any, and just like my wife's car keys, my response is usually, "Oh, bullshit, you just don't know where you left it." Listen, if you can walk or talk or think thoughts, then you have empowerment because at some point you couldn't do those things either. But look at you now. So let's take a minute to look a little harder at where empowerment might be hiding. In the course, I start this module off with a quote from legendary football coach Bill Parcells that says, "Confidence is only born of demonstrated confidence." To me, this is the essence of empowerment. In the module before becoming empowered, we talk about developing the belief that better is an option and a better life and better way of doing things does exist for each of us. But belief will only get you so far. As another great coach and one of my mentors, Derek Spivey, used to say, "Don't talk about it, be about it." At some point, you have to put yourself out there and just try, just do. And a lot of people will respond, "But Mark, I don't have the courage to do that." And again, I'll say, "Oh, bullshit, you just don't know where you left it." You have to lean on your character strengths and trust yourself and be willing to accept the support that exists around you. You also have to know that you might fail miserably, and the only empowerment you'll get is knowing how not to do it next time. So what? It's still a source of empowerment. Take the small victory, pat yourself on the back, and confidently do better next time. Chances are you're going to get closer to right more times than not, and if you focus on that, then you'll see where the demonstrated confidence that Coach Parcells is talking about comes from. Now that we understand that we are actually closer to becoming empowered than we thought, I want to share some practical examples of what becoming empowered really looks like at the personal, organizational, and leadership levels. So the inspiration for this week's personal level example of becoming empowered comes from my youngest son, Mitchell. He's currently in his first year at the University of New England and plays football there. In his entire football career, Mitchell has always been on the field, both sides of the ball until about his sophomore year in high school. So you can imagine his confidence was probably a little shook when he got to college camp and found himself a little further down the depth chart than he's used to. He wasn't getting the opportunities to demonstrate confidence. Now, couple that with all the other changes starting college out of state brings, and it's easy to see how he might not feel so empowered or maybe even powerless. So last week he calls and we have what ended up being a very typical first few weeks in college, the sky is falling conversation. Now, Mitchell started football and school at the same time when he was about 4 years old. So school and football go hand in hand for him. I'll skip the details, but one of the very first questions I asked him was, "When's the last time you actually full on tackled someone?" I knew they hadn't played a game and had only had limited scrimmages against each other, so I knew he hadn't gotten in full-blown football mode. No football player does until that first real contact. Again, demonstrated confidence. Fortunately, he also had his first JV game coming up that same week and would play a good bit, so I kind of thought this would work itself out. So much so, I flew up to watch it happen. When we ate dinner Friday night, I could still hear some lingering powerless vibes in his tone, so I kindly reminded him of some of the times he had already done this as we talked high school football that was happening back home and some of the tougher competitions he'd faced before. I still knew it wouldn't matter until he hit somebody, but at least the thoughts that he is a really damn good football player were back to the forefront. His very first play on defense in college was a solo tackle for a loss. For my non-football people out there, that's a really good thing. What ensued was one of his statistically best football games he's ever played, and you could just watch the demonstrated confidence turn into empowerment over the course of the game. It wasn't flawless by any scope, and there's plenty to work on, but the mindset shift from finding that empowerment was about as rewarding as finding the car keys and saying, oh damn, that's where I left them. Needless to say, the young man who drove me to the airport on Sunday was speaking a whole different language than the one who picked me up on Friday night, and I can't wait to see how it continues to grow week over week and permeates into the other areas of his life up at school. Finding empowerment doesn't always happen just because you tackle one task or person, especially at the organizational level. So let me share an example of organizational empowerment that occurred over time. This week's example of the organizational level application of becoming empowered comes from a local college access network I've been working with called Elevate Brevard, which is supported by another great organization I've mentioned here before, Family Promise of Brevard. Elevate Brevard focuses on helping increase access to post-secondary education and industry certification training throughout our community. Elevate's launching a new initiative this year, and I am fortunate to have been able to help in the early planning stages, but my travels in August forced me to miss a few of the formative meetings. This week, I reconnected with the director of Elevate, Mrs. Shayla Smith, to get caught up as the kickoff event for the new initiative is next Friday. Even though I can't make next Friday's kickoff event, she walked me through all the updates, helped me understand how the monthly events were planned, and what my supporting role would be. All of this made me feel empowered as a contributing member of the group because she shared her demonstrated confidence with me. But there are two other things she did that really showed what organizational empowerment is. First, she was scheduling the monthly pre-event meeting so everyone could come together to share lessons learned from the past month's events, prepare for the next event, and collaborate on any remaining open topics. Sure, this may sound like good organizational management 101, but this simple step makes sure everyone involved can share the same empowerment and feed both off of and into each other's experiences and contributions to the success of the group as a whole. In the military world, this is what's referred to as a force multiplier. The second thing Shayla did to promote organizational empowerment was explaining the two different mentor scenario options and asking me what my preference was. It wasn't just about a preference, she was asking what my strength is and where I feel I can be of most value to the overall success of these events. Putting members of the organization in positions where they're most comfortable with allows them to lean on their personal strengths and demonstrated confidence, setting them up to feel empowered in their roles. Thank you, Shayla, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity to work with you and Elevate Brevard throughout the school year as we positively impact the young people in our community. Now, I could have easily used Shayla as the leadership level example of becoming empowered, but I want to focus on another story for that one. Being a leader, by definition, means you're out front, on display, and often exposed to a higher risk. Usually that's why you get paid more too. Sometimes people try to take advantage of that fact, and it requires an empowered leader to not fall prey to that. This week's example and practical application of becoming empowered at the leadership level comes from the world of football, but I don't want to talk about the football player, but rather the leader. Patrick Mahomes is currently the face of the NFL and by default an organizational leader, not only for his team, but the league as a whole. To make matters worse, one of his top teammates, Travis Kelce, is dating the most popular woman in the world, Taylor Swift, who happens to hang out regularly with Patrick's wife, Brittany. Okay, I've set the scene if you've never heard of any of these people. Recently, Taylor Swift endorsed one candidate for president, and there was some kerfuffle about Mahomes' wife liking some social media post related to the other candidate at some point in time in the past. So, this of course gives the opportunity for one of those fall prey moments as the media wants to know who Patrick supports. Undoubtedly, trying to create a story that doesn't need to exist and does no real good for anyone. Patrick, being an empowered leader, took the high road and repeatedly said he will use his platform to promote telling people to register to vote, as he feels that's what's most important in the American political process. Mahomes did a great job setting the example for everyone in the organization by giving them shelter to keep their own political preferences private as well, and making sure he didn't do anything to bring undue stress to the organization. Becoming a leader comes with a certain amount of empowerment to begin with. What we do with it determines whether or not we can continue to be an empowered leader. Being an empowered leader requires us to use our demonstrated confidence on behalf of those we lead. As I've said many times before here, we have to understand what's best for the individuals under our charge and the organization we lead. When it comes to empowerment, I have rule number 17. The more you enable those who depend on you, the more independent you can be. True leadership empowerment comes from empowering those you lead. Thanks for tuning in again this week as I shared some ways you can become empowered. Whether you're trying to find your way in a new environment, getting the best out of your group on a new initiative, or staying above the fray to set the example and protect something bigger than yourself, becoming empowered requires you to do. It does take a degree of courage and demonstrated confidence, so lean on your strengths to build those up, and don't tell yourself you don't have any, because remember, that's bullshit, you just don't know where you put it. Look for areas where you've previously demonstrated confidence and use those same attributes to propel you forward in the next thing. Take some time this week to invest in your own empowerment, because if you aren't bought in, you sold out.